to this meeting of the Northern Corridor Community Board, whether you be present here in the meeting or whether you are viewing online. All of you are welcome, and your contributions are also most welcome. Can I first of all ask if there are any apologies for this meeting tonight?
Yes, Chair, there's a few apologies. So we have apologies from Anne Innes, Councillor McLaren, Laura Campbell, Louise Sheridan, Maureen Devlin, and Teresa Aitken.
Gary, I'm actually on behalf of Teresa. I'm Gemma Neal, the Children's and Families Coordinator at Glenboig.
You're very welcome tonight, Gemma. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. What we can do now for those of us that are were there, have you all been able to view a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting? Take it that's a resounding yes. From that meeting, what I would ask is, firstly, if anybody's got any comments that they wish to make on its content.
Yes, Brandon, Anne-Marie.
Right, okay.
Just a couple of wee issues on the minutes that have been noted. The only reason I will raise the first one is a spelling mistake with regards to my name. There's no E in the Anne, but the reason that I'm raising that is because when we go on in the minutes, in a few sections, I am actually noted as Anne-Marie Quinn within that. So I don't know why that's happening. So that needs to be rectified in section 7, 8, 9.2. And also on the action sheet, section 7.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how your name was misconstrued, but we will get that corrected.
Yeah. And one other thing is with regards to section 9.2, it was with an inquiry that I had made to Steps Running Track. It is noted that information was provided and further discussion will take place going forward. There was actually a request made for consultation results that has not been received, and there hasn't been any information provided to ourselves with regards to that. I'm certainly always available for further discussion moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments on the consultation results from anybody? Is there any reason why those haven't been made available?
Chair Matt Costello here. I'm happy to come in on that. We have been looking for the consultation results that Anne-Marie referred to on there, and we're still trying to find something that's relating to an event that took place. We might contact Anne-Marie for further information regarding that, but we're unable to give any at this stage, but we'll certainly chase that up and come back with further information.
Right, please do. With respect to the minutes, if there's no further comment, would anybody that was present at that meeting be prepared to propose them?
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Brandon. I've had my hand up, please. Alice here.
Unfortunately, I can't see. Yes, all right, okay. And Alice.
Thanks, Brandon. I'd like to refer the meeting to paragraph 11.10, North Lanarkshire Council Community Empowerment Committee. This was raised at the previous meeting, and it is noted this was advised not possible as the elected members were the community's representation on the committee, and the request was that consideration should be given to the chair of the community board being given a direct channel of communication with the Community Empowerment Committee. I find the response to this very disappointing. the purpose of a community empowerment committee is to empower communities, and the deficit of a lack of direct communication with the Community Empowerment Committee is unsatisfactory. I would suggest again that the model requires a review, and I would ask that this be noted again in the minutes, that a review of this is carried out. Failing to allow the chair of the community board to communicate with the Community Empowerment Committee surely disempowers the community. I'd also like to refer to paragraph 11.11, public sector equality duty. And the request was about the availability of equality impact assessments. And the reply was that consideration as to whether these should be connected to reports was given, but it was considered inappropriate as documents were on the council website or available on request. And having looked at the documents and the links, I would like it noted that I have found these informative, lacking information and inaccessible, and I would ask that a review of the availability of equality impact assessments is reviewed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alice. Certainly I have heard requests for equality impact assessments made before. All I can do is revert to the council and say, please can they make them more accessible so that we can see? Is anybody able to respond to that?
Brandon, we passed on the information to in relation to the attention or contact with the Community Empowerment Committee, and that was the information that we had gathered from there, and that was fed back to the meeting in relation to that. Regarding the equality impact assessments, we will certainly feed that back in terms of the accessibility and the website, etc. That's been raised a concern.
Okay. Is there anybody else with any comments with respect to this minute before we move to try and accept them? Okay, is anybody prepared then to propose these, and a seconder, please?
Happy to propose, Brandon. Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Kirkland.
Oh, yes.
I'll second them, Brandon. It's Claire.
Thank you, Claire. That's Claire Williams. Moving on, the arrangements for the chair of the community board. Previously, the chair was John Wilson, who stepped down at the last meeting. I, being the vice chair at the time, now have been promoted, shall we say, to the position of chair. And what we would like to do is also adopt a vice chair to again support this role, so that we've always got the continuity of a chair should something like the previous event happened. There has been a proposal for Claire Williams to become vice chair, and basically we're looking to see if that proposal is acceptable to the meeting, and that would be the way we would move forwards. Is there anybody else looking to take over in the vice chair role? I don't know. If anybody has a feeling on this, it would be grateful if you could express it. Otherwise, I would be asking for people to confirm their acceptance, both of me as chair and Claire Williams as vice chair. Does anybody have any other comment or proposal?
Thank you for silent, Brian. Brandon, I think that takes
Silence
it.
says everything. Okay.
Brandon, Alice Morton and Andrew McPherson have got their hands up.
Right. Okay. Andrew.
It's just that I've got no issue, and I would welcome people stepping forward. So thanks very much for that. But what I would say is that I think, for just to pick up on your own point, Brandon, about consistency and indeed expertise in this type of area, I think it's probably best if we agree that we would have this for at least 6 months or a year. So that it gives you the opportunity to actually, get your feet under the table, rather than because I know there's some how often do we need to review this, and I would say we just accept it for a 12-month period going forward. I think that would be good. And also, what I have asked for as well, through our own training team within the council, as part of the training needs analysis, and this is no reflection at all on you or indeed Claire, but just in general across the community boards, to provide that training and support for chairs and vice chairs of community boards, so we can actually build on the expertise that we have throughout all the community boards. So no objection to the nominations getting put forward, but I would suggest that maybe we have it for a 12-month period.
You may have missed some of the discussions at previous meetings, Andrew. We in fact actually said that we preferred that when we was presented with the proposal of rotating the chair. We felt that for the reasons exactly as you've just said, that the chair should remain and, shall we say, as you say, get their feet under the table and have some continuity maintained. So I'm in perfect agreement with what you've just said. Also, the point of training, I'm not a chairperson. I've only been asked to do this. I have no training in this. So yes, it would be beneficial to me, and maybe beneficial to Claire as well, to receive such support. So that offer is most welcome. Alice, you was going to say something?
Thank you, Chair. I welcome you, Brandon, as Chair and Claire as Vice Chair, and I would endeavour to support you in your roles and welcome you on board. Thank
you. If that is the case, would somebody be prepared to propose the actual position? Is that Alice? And
I'll second it.
That's Carol. Thank you very much.
Just to say, Brandon, there's also a chat bar, and I think Councillor Lennon was willing to support that there as well. So just,
right, it's great.
This is
yes,
we manage everything here, so we'll try and pop up if anything comes up that I should maybe mention to you.
Right, thank you very much, and thank you, Greg, as well, for supporting the proposal.
Well, sorry, Brandon, I was coming in with a question there. I put it in the chat bar. Normally, the way the elected members want, we have a question, we put a queue in there, and then obviously we can get to go with that. But I've just seen Gary Stark coming in and asking me, is that a question? So, yes, it's a question. Obviously, if it's okay through yourself, Chair, to ask the question. Now, again, the Northern Corridor Community Board, I don't see all community boards as being the same. I see them having their own individual identity in relation to how we're going to progress and evolve. But what my question would be at this juncture, because I've seen that a couple of officers were quite concerned at the prospect there. Hopefully, I'm not a tone in that, but at the prospect there, a vice chair being introduced, I'm fully supportive. Declaring yourself chairing these meetings 100% behind that idea. But the point being is what's the current format we have in other community boards? I take it we have a chair and a vice chair in other community boards, and there's no issue with that. Perhaps an officer can answer that.
I'm happy to come in and answer that, Chair, if that's okay. It differs across the boards, Councillor Lennon, and there are some that have chair and vice chairs. There's no necessity for that to be in place, but it's more than welcome if that's what the board wants to do.
So to answer the question, Brandon, fully supportive of you and Claire.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Greg, sorry. Yes, I mean, the only reason why we felt the need for a chair and a vice chair, as you saw with the position where John basically left us after the last meeting, if we did not have a vice chair, then we wouldn't have someone to step up into the role automatically as we have had today. So it seems a logical thing to have some sort of system in place so that there is a succession plan should that sort of eventuality be needed to be addressed going forwards. It makes for a smoother operation of the meeting, and I hope everybody is happy with that. Are we able to move on to the next item? Community Matters. Community Matters is about input from the community, and there was a request made for community items to be put forwards ahead of the meeting. I am aware of a number of items that were put forwards to which some feedback was received, but this doesn't, I don't know whether this was circulated to the meeting as a whole. So I will just briefly go through these items, some of which will already have been addressed, but at least then everybody at the board has an awareness of them. The first one related to the community board chair and vice chair, and this of course has been addressed in the discussion that has just taken place. So I believe that is now resolved. The second point that came through related to the administration of the board and the meetings. And again, we have followed a format of having not necessarily verbatim meeting minutes. We have a set of notes with action points, and those action points are circulated together with a link to the actual recording of this meeting, so that if people wish to review a particular section of the meeting, they are able to do so. So I feel that that way it gives us an outline, an overview of the meeting, but it also gives us the possibility of going into detail should we need to do so. One of the areas that has been in the past a concern was the circulation of the information following a meeting. And I must say that certainly after the last meeting, the notes and the link to the meeting came out in a good timely manner to allow people to review those and therefore have the opportunity to go back to their communities and discuss the items therein. Previously, unfortunately, we didn't get the notes until quite late, so it was difficult to discuss with our communities that we represent. Likewise, agenda, the idea is that we get points from the community, points from various participants in good time, so that an agenda can be produced and sent out in a timely manner. One of the things would be for papers to be attached or give people the opportunity to make preparations for this meeting. There is a lot of papers that come out, so we need to ensure people have time to do so. we do get papers from some people regularly, but others we do not so much. So it would be good if everybody could provide those papers. Again, with respect to the meeting administration, the question has been raised about the use of the WebEx platform. My belief and understanding is that technology issues are the reason behind the use of this platform in preference to Microsoft Teams, for instance, but in time we may move to a platform that we are now becoming more familiar with. The presentations from the various statutory bodies like Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Police Scotland, we did ask if they could be moved up the agenda. However, they are part of the whole meeting, so the idea is that they should still participate within the whole meeting as best can. There was a point raised with respect to the board convener, but this essentially has now been overtaken by the appointment of a chair and vice chair. So that will move on now in the way we have established. There was a question with respect to participatory budgeting. However, that is an item later on in the meeting, so that will be picked up there, and hopefully we will get some answers to that point. Consultation framework, again, that has now been raised again, and a request has gone forward for further information to come back, and I trust that will happen. The role of the community champion was a question, and again, the community champion is present at this meeting, so no doubt we will hear further on that. A local issue relative to grit bins was raised. However, that has been resolved because the arrangements was for additional support rather than removal of a facility that was already in existence. A point was raised with regards to the Northern Corridor Health Facility. Again, there is a point in this meeting where we will be hearing further, we would hope, on that. So generally speaking, a lot of these items are either still, we're still receiving feedback, so hopefully we will get a greater understanding of them. There was a point raised with respect to town and community hubs, and hopefully we will be getting updates to let us know more about that again as the meeting progresses. Training needs. Training needs, again, I believe we've got some information coming to us as part of the meeting on training, so hopefully that will give us some more detail. Terms of reference was a point that was raised. Again, my point with regards to this is that I feel the meeting needs to make more close alliance to the terms of reference and bring it more to life as a focus of the meeting. So maybe somebody could give us some guidance towards that, because we do seem to have lots of things on the agenda, but not necessarily those that align with the terms of reference. So those were a number of items that came through. A further item has come through with relation to a traffic problem in the in Coatbridge Road in the Glenboig area and requesting what measures are proposed to be put in place for the safety of residents living there. I don't know if anybody has any feedback on that at this point in time, but I would hope that one of the council officers should be able to give us some return some information on that. Those are the concerns raised by the community. I would like to give an opportunity if anyone in the community wishes to reinforce any of those points or add to them, this would be a good time to be able to do so.
Brandon, is it possible to just add, on behalf of Caroline and the young people that are there tonight, that Caroline didn't receive an invitation to this meeting?
Right.
So can we make sure that everybody's on the invite list? Especially such an important representation.
Yes, yes. I think that goes back to a point that has been raised at a previous meeting where we asked for a list of the Northern Corridor organisations to ensure that all they were all covered. And I don't know what's happened. There was a list provided, but it wasn't very extensive.
Chair, can I just come in? The Mullinsburn Tenants and Residents Association wasn't on it either, and I'd like to try and understand how on earth you could have the chair of the Northern Corridor Community Forum being the representative for the Mullinsburn Tenants and Residents Association, but yet, and I'm here to represent the Northern Corridor Community Forum, but yet the Tenants and Residents Association isn't even on the list. And we are registered with the council, obviously being a Tenants and Residents Association.
Yes. I don't know, are any of the officers able to give us any feedback on this?
Yeah, well, as I say, after the last meeting, Chair, we shared the list that we had, and if anybody had any feedback on that, if you're fed back in, it was missing from that, we're more than happy to add any organisations to that list to be sent out information. So if you've given us that information before and we haven't added it to the list, I do apologise. If you're just telling us that now, we will certainly add that to the list for future communication to ensure that all these groups that are mentioned here tonight will be added to that list for further communication to ensure as many groups are represented here as possible.
Chair, my query is though, how on earth were we missed in the first place? We've been registered with the council for years and we get communication left, right and centre from all departments, including Matt's own department. So how on earth can we possibly be missing off the list for the community board when we have attended the laps all the time?
Yeah, there may well have been some error there, Carol. We do apologise for that if that's happened. But we certainly do try and share the information between the services within the council and our partners in Voluntary Action North Lanarkshire, for example, to try and get as much information as we can. But we'll certainly endeavour to make sure we get that list tidied up as best we can.
From my perspective, I mean, there were only 19 organisations actually on the list, which did seem very, very short to me.
Chair, could I?
Yes, Greg.
Sorry, Councillor Lennon's want to come in before me, Chair. He had the question in the chat bar.
Councillor Lennon.
Cheers, Chair. Thanks very much for that. My question is kind of directed to Matt then. I find that a curious answer there. Can I ask if there's any sort of cross-referencing with the internal tenant participation team in relation to Tenants and Residents Association? I know in my ward I've got 3 Tenants and Residents Associations. Tonight I'm finding out that one's not really been invited. I know that Brace certainly not been invited, and obviously Isabel's here in her capacity for the Northern Corridor Forum also. So again, is there any cross-referencing in relation to the number of tenants and residents groups that we have in both wards in 5 and 6?
Yeah, what's probably happened on this occasion, Councillor Lennon, is when the board started, our colleagues in the tenant participation team were asked to coordinate responses for each of the boards as to which tenants and residents association would be nominated to sit on the boards. This was before it became opened out wider to all groups. So what's probably happened there is that following the initial nominations from the tenants and resident team, it hasn't been sent out to further groups. So that's somewhere we have fallen down in that part, and we'll certainly make sure we can fix that as best we can. But we do hope that all partners share the information with their own lists and contacts as well. I mean, it's for all of us as partners to share this information as widely as possible.
Chair, through yourself, could I get a supplementary on that if that's possible? Perhaps I can even assist in expediting matters a wee bit quicker here. Perhaps it would be ideal then for Matt to go back and cross-reference any groups that are missed in relation to any internal services that are currently working with community groups.
Isabel Kelly?
Yeah, going back to items from the agenda, I was really quite concerned that you put forward like 13 items, Brandon. Some of those items have never been closed off. So when we're talking about having a direct link to the community empowerment, the terms of reference, the role of the community champion, etc., all these things we have got comments about. We've had feedback for the council. Now, to my mind, those comments are, sorry, we're not accommodating you. So I think, Brendan, you have to take that up. The council officers can only come back with the response that they get, say, from the Community Empowerment Committee, sorry, but that response is unacceptable to the community. So therefore, as chair, I would ask that on the 4 or 5 items where we have said we would like either the board to be different. Now, we had Matt saying about vice chair and chair. In some respects, terms of reference, etc., we're being put in a bolt hole and told that's the terms of reference and everybody's got to work to that. But then we get told, maybe when we're speaking to Andrew, every community is different and there's the answer to our problems is maybe not the answer in another community. So therefore, I don't see why the board has to be rigid to every single aspect of how it's administered. And I don't see that the terms of reference have to be the same with every board if a particular board want to change it. And I think if if a particular board wants a link to various committees, that should be open to them. And what we can't have is officers who are placed in a position basically stating that's what a committee has told them. So if we don't get the response that we've requested through the Community Empowerment Act, through the terms of reference, etc., then I would ask you as chair to take that up directly with the committee yourself, because that response is not acceptable. And it's not acceptable when you put items on the agenda for them to be dealt with as a sideline and not dealt with through the agenda, because not everybody got the points. So I think it's happened once. I think what we did was we went through various minutes and said that was never addressed, that was never addressed. And I do appreciate it was quite a lengthy agenda, but I think that's now got to stop. And I think that if we place an item on the agenda, it's on the agenda. And what doesn't happen is that the community items are watered down, are left off because the council has their own agenda. I appreciate that this is a two-way communication, and the council will also want to put forward things that they want to discuss, but it is our only opportunity. So therefore, if we place something on the agenda, it isn't sent out to certain people within the community board to get an answer.
I totally agree with what you say there, Isabel, and that is one of the reasons why I decided to bring that paper to the fore in the meeting at this point in time, because it should have been circulated with the agenda so that everybody was aware of the questions that had been raised by other members of this board. And as you say, if the points are put forward for the board to review, then it should be there, because these are the community's concerns, and that is the focus that the board should have. It should be here to address the community's concerns. So I don't believe that the items have, shall we say, gone away. Some of them have actually been addressed in the course of time, like the issue of, for instance, we no longer have a convener, we now have a chair and a vice chair, and there are certain other things that have evolved as these meetings have come together. My concern is that I would like to see the meetings become positive and to actually get some actual outcomes for the community. Here we are in November 2021. This board has been meeting since, I believe, August 2020. I can't think of anything positive, something concrete that has actually been delivered to our communities in that time, unless someone can correct me and say, yes, this has happened. All that seems to have happened is we've spent a lot of time debating things, but not delivering things. So I would like us to deliver to our communities something that they can say, yes, the board has done this for us. So hopefully that is gives a feel for what I would like to see, and that is more in line with what you would like to see as well.
Thank you.
Has anybody else got any points on the items?
Andrew's got his hand up, and Caroline's got her hand up, and Isabel's got their hand up.
Fortunately, I can't see these hands up.
I know. But Andrew McPherson has his hand up, and then I think it was Caroline, and then Isabel, if that's any help.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Yep, you'll get my full support. This board is about delivering for communities, and if we haven't delivered for communities, and this is a collective failure of the board, so we need to move it forward. So I agree with you 100%. And really, I am conscious at the time, and there is a lot of the stuff that's going to deliver for communities is further down that agenda. So to move things forward, with regards to the list of queries that have been put forward, I'm more than happy, Brandon and Claire as chair and vice chair, if you want to meet with myself and Matt to go through these individually, and maybe we can expand and go into a wee bit more detail on the matters that you've raised, then we'll happily do that, and we'll take away and we can work together on that so we can actually report back to the board rather than getting bogged down in that detail just now. In terms of the list of facilities, our list of organisations, I would agree an action from today is that we circulate the list that we have to all the board members. We ask then for people to come back to us on that, and we within the council will cross-check everything that we have as well. We will then reissue a further list at least a month before the next board meeting for final clarification. That is all the organisations that should be invited, and that will be a definitive list. That might change over time, but that will allow us a definitive list. And importantly, we need contacts on that as well, so that'll be good. And I would agree, like the terms of reference. The terms of reference is fine. And I know Isabel's comment there about having the question and not getting the answer. That maybe we've given you an answer, it's maybe not the answer you want, Isabel, and that will happen. I have to say that. But I think we don't get involved in or bog down the detail of terms of reference. If those terms of reference are stopping this board from delivering for the communities, then fine, let's have a look at it, and I will 100% back you up on it. But let's try and get something done in our communities to show that the boards are working, and I think that's where we need to go. In the LOIP, which is the local development programme and housing strategy, this is where we can change things. So just as a couple of actions there, Brandon, if through yourself, if you're okay with that, we will certainly deliver on that.
That would be a useful way to move forwards with them, yes. Again, I can't see the hands that are up, so
Hi there, it's Rose. It's to say that Caroline Henderson's name is hand is still up. So.
Caroline.
Hi, Brandon. The one thing I would like to say is that I'm very, very disappointed in the way that the points that were put in from the Northern Corridor Forum were dealt with and handled. I think it was very underhanded, dealt with, and you know, I mean, even when you look at the list, even when you look at the agenda, all the council items are itemised on the agenda. When it comes to the community items, it just says one item of community items, and that is not how you write an agenda. You list the different items on the agenda. It's not fair. I mean, to me, that just shows exactly how the community in the Northern Corridor have been treated by the council up until now. We've got one item for community and a whole itemised list of things for the council. And that's not what it's about. It has to be, we have to be treated fairly as the community. This is a community board, not a council board. We're not here to listen to the council on everything that they want to put forward to us. That is not the purpose of the board. Going back to the terms of reference, the terms of reference we were told would be evolving. It would be a change of thing, and I don't like the fact that you say that us getting bogged down in things, because terms of reference is a very, very important thing. It is the rules of this board. It is what we work to, and if you consider that to be getting bogged down, well, to me that's not good enough, because if you can't work by the rules, then there's no point in having this board at all, because you don't know what you're working to. And I understand that we all want to deliver for the community, but we all must work by the rules and decide what we're trying to do and achieve what we're wanting to do. And I don't like the attitude of, you know, getting bogged down in terms, you know, and in issues, because these issues to us are extremely important. That is why we have raised them yet again at the board. The items that we put on, we even separated into new items, which consisted of 8. And then follow up on previous items, which has been going on for months and months and months. The total items on the list were 13 in total. Now, no agenda should be that long. No group should be able to put in that many items, but it's because we do not get the feedback. And, you know, council might think that these items are not important and they're not worth discussing or whatever. But the community have a very different attitude, and they are important to us, and we want answers. And that is exactly the point of this board. And I'm sorry, but we will not rest until we do get answers. So, you know, these items will continue on the agenda until we get the responses and the answers that we are looking for.
Thank you, Carol. I think the point is now established, and yes, I agree that the communities items should be listed on the agenda as equal importance to those from the council. So yes, that I trust will not happen again in the future. I think Andrew McPherson has offered a interim solution for us to get some of these things moving along, so that we don't lose sight of them, and certainly that it would give the board a better bit of feedback than obviously the situation that occurred this time round. So hopefully for the next board, not only will some of these items actually have been cured and resolved anyway, but the next board will have the outstanding items on the actual agenda, so they're discussed and responses made direct to the whole board and not just to particular sections of it. And I trust that would be acceptable.
Chair, could I also ask that the agenda is sent out, as the rules state, 14 days in advance of the meeting, and not 7 as they were this time as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was there anyone else with Alice?
I'd like to support and reiterate the sentiments already expressed by various members of the meeting, and to say that the council should recognise that we are articulate people and we are able to formulate questions, we're able to express our opinions, and the time and effort that was taken to produce the list of 13 items should be acknowledged. We did not spend time putting these items together if they were not important. So we would ask that they are acknowledged, and I refer back again, where a situation like this occurs, there should be a direct link from the chair of the community board with the Community Empowerment Committee to express concerns that are raised at the community board. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alice.
Chair, it's Matt Costello. Can I come in a wee second, please, just to pick up on that point? It's just in terms of what Alice was saying, the points were raised, and I say we're happy to share that, the responses that were given to yourself in relation to that. We're happy to share that across the whole board if that's something that would help to ensure that people they do acknowledge that these points were raised. And we most certainly do recognise the capacity of all the people who are part of this board, and we respect fully the views that people have want to take and bring to the board. And certainly it is our intention, if issues are raised, that we will include those issues in agendas. But as you know, that agenda was those issues were dealt with separately through that correspondence with yourself. I'm happy to share that correspondence as wider if that's something that you want us to do.
Well, however, Matt, the points were sent in as part of the request for items for the board agenda. That was how the points were collated and sent in. So it was expected that they would have formed part of the board agenda.
Can I just say, Chair, that may I be as blunt as to say that the council officials had absolutely no right to deal with it, taking it dealing with it separately. The community put those points in as a call for items from the community for the agenda for the community board, and I don't really care what level in the council they are, but they have absolutely no right to take them out and deal with them in any other manner apart from putting them on the agenda for the community board.
Could I just say now that time's marching on, and I think the officers, I think we're community champion. I think any council officers that are on now know that we're extremely disappointed that agenda items were dealt with in that matter. And I think we can take it as read that it was because there was 13 items, it was quite lengthy, it was maybe felt the best way to deal with it. And now that won't happen again, and we'll get their points addressed in the usual manner, being part of the agenda, because we're in danger of the relationships deteriorating, and we're wanting to make it positive rather than negative. So I think we've laboured it and we've made our feelings known, and I don't think it'll happen again. I think we can take that as read.
Thank you, Isabel, and I think the meeting will agree with your points there. Therefore, we can move on, and the next item on the agenda is actually for the community champion to speak. So, Andrew, the time is yours, and maybe you could address some of the points that were raised within that commentary as you go.
Yeah, listen, I'll be very brief, Brandon, because I don't have anything really specific to raise in terms from since the last meeting, really began to meet with individual community groups, which has been really good for me because I'm trying to gain an understanding of what the particular issues are in the particular areas. And just reflecting on the budget listening event we had as well back in late October. I think that could have been better. I think there's a few lessons to be learned from that for next year, if that's the same way we want to go. Maybe being maybe more prescriptive in the type of things that we want to discuss with people as well. So other than that, Brandon, I don't really have much to elaborate on other than just the previous comments there about we'll meet with yourself and Claire, myself and Matt will meet with yourself and Claire, and we'll take those points forward that have been raised previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Look forward to working more with you and looking for positive outcomes. The next point, which is something which is of great interest to the Northern Corridor, we're looking to have this housing strategy update, and our interest is very much around what the housing strategy is for the Northern Corridor. And obviously, we're keen to hear.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Margaret Kelly, so thanks everyone for the opportunity to come along this evening and provide an update on where we're at with local housing strategy. I have a short presentation.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Margaret. I have the presentation here. Do you want me to share it? Is that helpful, or are you happy to share it?
Yeah, that's fine. Rod, I've got it here, so I'll share it. I'll let you get the difficulties. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so a bit of background. So in terms of our local housing strategy, if anyone isn't familiar with it, it is our overarching main housing plan for North Lanarkshire area. It is an all-tenure document and it sets out what our housing vision is for housing and housing related services over the next 5-year period. So that's 2021 to 2026. In terms of the development process for the local housing strategy, it consisted of a review of local and national evidence and a housing need and demand assessment, which is taken on a Glasgow City region basis. We carried out very extensive consultation. So phase 1 consisted of engagement and involvement to develop the draft strategies, to identify what the key housing challenges are in North Lanarkshire and what the priorities are for the communities and the people who live in North Lanarkshire. We then published the draft strategy in June this year for formal consultation and submitted it also to Scottish Government, where it was peer reviewed by another local authority. And a very new update for you is that it was approved at committee today at the Housing and Regeneration Committee. So I think at the last community board meeting, it was the consultation process was just closing at that point. So that's the most recent update for it. It now means we're in the process where we will be progressing the actions contained within that strategy over the next 5-year period. So the vision in terms of our new strategy is linked and very much aligned to the plan for North Lanarkshire, and it is to make North Lanarkshire the place to live through the provision of high quality housing and support in sustainable communities that enables people to thrive and prosper. Now, as I said, the local housing strategy is an all-tenure document. It is very broad in scope, and to achieve this vision, it is underpinned by 7 strategic housing outcomes. The first housing outcome is around housing delivery, so that's increasing the supply of high quality sustainable homes in North Lanarkshire across tenures. Strategic outcome 2 is around sustainable communities, so that's linking into the town visions, it's tackling empty homes. Strategic outcome 3 is around preventing and eradicating homelessness. Outcome 4 is around specialist provision that covers accessible housing, but also access to supports and services to enable people to live safely and well at home. Outcome 5 is around tackling climate change and fuel poverty, so the contribution that our housing makes in terms of achieving our net zero goals. Strategic outcome 6 is around improving house condition, and that's not just in terms of council homes and social rented homes, it is in terms of the wider sector. And our last strategic housing outcome is around contributing to improving the quality and the accessibility of the private rented sector, which is a new specific outcome that we've included in this strategy this time forward. Now, our local housing strategy has a range of actions all sitting underneath each of those strategic housing outcomes. And if I had the time this evening, I would love to go through every single action in more detail. However, because we do have a busy agenda, I've just picked out some of the key actions, but I have got the links to the local housing strategy where you can view all the actions that we intend to progress over the next 5 years in the next slide. But some of the key actions that may be of interest for the community board members are around delivering more alternative mixed tenure housing. So that's looking at shared equity housing, looking at mid-market rent homes, and also newly this time is around helping enable self-build. And that involves looking at developing a self-build register, but also looking at ways in which we can use planning policy to help enable self-build and increase the range of housing options available to people in North Lanarkshire. Many people will be familiar that we have a very ambitious council new build programme, so we intend to deliver on that with 5,000 new council homes by 2035 and a considerable number of affordable homes within the next 5 years, both council and registered social landlord as well, through the Strategic Housing Investment Plan. Part of this, and a very crucial part of this, is about increasing the provision of wheelchair and accessible homes, and that's across 10 years. So a big part of our work in terms of the next 5 years is going to be engaging with private developers to help private developers develop more wheelchair livable homes and drive up accessibility standards. We also want to expand the empty homes and the open market purchase scheme, because that's really, really effective, not only in terms of increasing our supply of affordable homes, but also in terms of tackling empty homes in blighting communities and also helping us enable some of the common works in mixed tenure blocks. For the Northern Corridor in particular, you might be interested that we want to look specifically at reviewing the affordable housing policy. So we want to look at the impact that that has had over the last 5 years in terms of pressure and demand for affordable homes in the north. We also want to implement and progress the actions contained in the Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan, and that's a plan that sets out how we will effectively tackle homelessness, focusing on minimising time spent in temporary accommodation for households that are affected by homelessness, but also making sure that people who have the most complex needs get access to the right support at the right time and wraparound support to enable the best possible outcomes in the longer term. We will be very much linking into the town centre action plans as they progress and get developed, and our role is around looking at residential provision in terms of the town centres and delivering on some of those key projects. We already have 20-minute neighbourhoods in North Lanarkshire, lots of them, but we want to further develop those also, and housing makes a huge contribution to that. And our focus will be on looking at the social, the physical and the digital infrastructure that we need to deliver those high quality sustainable communities. And also in terms of sustainable communities, we intend within the next 5 years to complete phase 1 of our tower reprovisioning programme, but also identify our tower blocks and other low demand flatted blocks for implementation for phase 2. And in terms of net zero, we want to further develop a route map for East 2 and setting out what we need to do in terms of our housing stock to achieve net zero, whilst improving energy advice and signposting for people and understanding the extent and scale of fuel poverty and ensuring what we do in terms of net zero ensures a just transition so we don't exacerbate fuel poverty or push more people into fuel poverty. And lastly, but certainly not least, is improving standards and quality in the private rented sector. So that's working in partnership with private landlords to ensure that the private rented sector offers a high quality housing option and provides an attractive housing option for the people of North Lanarkshire. So our next steps, as I said, the local housing strategy was just approved today, and really that sets out our work plan for the next 5 years. I've included the link here so that you can go and view the strategy. It's on the council website, and happy to take any comments or questions.
Firstly, thank you for your presentation, Margaret. As I said at the start, we're very much focused on the Northern Corridor. The Northern Corridor does not have any town centres. It does not have any 20-minute neighbourhoods. And what upon the earth is Ish to? So I wonder if you could start off by addressing those points relative to the Northern Corridor.
Okay, first of all, Chair, the local housing strategy, I totally appreciate your comments and your feedback. The local housing strategy is a pan-North Lanarkshire strategy, so it does have a lot of high-level action. So apologies if there's some in there which are not of particular relevance for the Northern Corridor Community Board. In terms of Ish, that's energy efficiency standards for social rented homes. So apologies for the use of acronyms. I should probably have put the full title within that slide. So it's really just the standards that our homes have to meet in terms of energy efficiency standards.
Anybody else got any points they wish to raise?
Isabel Kelly's got a hand raised, Brandon.
Hi, Margaret. A couple of things. I wondered if you could put your second slide up. It just moved away just before I got it.
Yeah, sure. Is that okay to do that just now?
Yes.
I think it's the one after that, sorry. No, must be the one again. You were so quick, Margaret. Yes, that's it. When you look at strategic outcome 2, I was wanting to make a comment about that. I was wanting to make a comment about strategic outcome 4. In terms of strategic outcome 2, we don't have in Gapcosh, and I'm only speaking for Gapcosh, and I think it's becoming apparent in the rest of the Northern Corridor, sustainable communities. We do not have a piece of ground left where houses aren't being built. We're in a community growth area, and this has been going on from 2006. We've seen the Clyde plan. We know that there's over 20,000 houses getting built, 5,000 of those are social housing. There is no provision within Gapcosh for any social housing whatsoever. In terms of sustainable housing, or in terms of affordable housing rather, the average earnings in North Lanarkshire, published by North Lanarkshire in terms of earnings, the average earnings are around £27,000. A mortgage is to service that debt and take on a mortgage is about £108,000, and we don't get a house built at £108,000 for anybody to purchase. So that's the first thing. The affordable housing that is coming in will go to particular housing authorities. In terms of independent living, health and well-being, we can go back to facilities and infrastructure and how that's affecting our health and well-being. And in terms of independent living, there is no housing which is adapted for wheelchair people in wheelchairs, because there's no social housing and none of the developers are building that type of housing. Now, part of the issue is the amount of land that is being taken up in building the houses. If I give you an example, we should have in a planning application that went through for Persimmon 72 houses, but you've changed the 25% limit on affordable housing, and instead of getting 72 houses that are affordable, we're only getting 42, and that is happening with every application. So therefore that money is going elsewhere. These are getting a commuted sum to the council, and those houses aren't being built in the area. And it's basically social cleansing, love. If you can't afford a £300,000 house, you won't be able to live in Gapcosh, and it goes up to over £400,000. You'll get Persimmon building, the last build was 189,000, and we had some that went into social housing, went into housing associations. And what they're doing is they're building 3 and 4 and 5 bedroom houses, which take up more landmass, instead of building like terrace or semi-detached. So therefore the council isn't getting the housing on the land, and actually the council haven't got the negotiation skills at planning level to make these developers build what is needed in the area for the people that live there. Any youngsters who want to continually live in the Northern Corridor will soon not be able to afford to do so. So in your strategic outcome 2 and in 4, it does not meet the requirements inside the Northern Corridor anyway at Gapcosh. We can say that. We know every single planning application, we know exactly what goes forward, and we're down for 1,927 houses. And if all the planning applications, if you look at the applications that are in, if you look at the development statements that are there, we will end up with over 2,800 houses built in Gapcosh, and that is way over. Then we will be taking 36% of all the private housing that is getting built across the whole of North Lanarkshire, and we do not have a school, a community centre, we don't have a place to meet. We have a community hall built in 1903 that holds 70 people, and that is it. And the population at that time was 350 houses, and from that we are into the build, plus 2 housing estates were built outside the actual community growth area. We're very well versed in the Clyde plan and what you have to achieve in terms of council houses, and the strategy is not getting delivered for the lower end of the market.
Thank you, Isabel. And I think actually what Isabel has said there is actually reflected in other parts of the Northern Corridor. So that is why I stressed, how does this strategy affect us? And I don't know whether you have the opportunity to return to the respective departments and teams and take back this sort of information to see what could be done for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Chair. For one other community board, we did actually have a specific session out with, so if that is of use to community board members, certainly we can do that. One thing I would say, and I don't know if it's okay just to come in at this point, is to say that in terms of, that's why there is a big focus. I do appreciate in terms of private sector, the developers, there is a bit of a lag in terms of developing wheelchair and independent homes that support independent living and health and wellbeing. But it is only very recently that new guidance has come in from Scottish Government, which stipulates that local authorities need to be looking to set targets and work with developers, and that will be a challenge going forward. But that's something that we're really ready and up for taking that challenge on. So it is just early days in terms of that, Isabel, but it's a hugely important priority, is to make sure that there's wheelchair accessible homes across tenures, And also in terms of, totally appreciate in terms of what you're saying in terms of affordability. We know it's an issue in the north. We know it's specifically an issue in the north and specifically in the Northern Corridor as well, because our research tells us that. We are trying to build affordable homes across the full of North Lanarkshire, and we have got a huge focus on developing a range of options to some of those things I spoke about earlier. Mid-market rent homes, an alternative to the private rented sector that provides much more improved, high quality housing as an alternative to the private rented sector, and also looking at things like shared equity for all households, but also shared equity for older people. We recognise that we do need to do more around delivering a much broader range of housing options to meet those wider needs.
The issue is the strategy that's been put forward. There's no way that you can interject in that. There's no willingness, and it's like a train, love, that's, you know, it's going to hit the car in the tracks, but there's nobody willing to put the brakes on. They've committed themselves, they've put themselves in that position, and nobody will retract from it. So in terms of the Northern Corridor, and especially in Gartcosh, there's no room for manoeuvre, because the developers have come in, they've fenced off the land, the landowners have entered into agreements with them, and it's very difficult for the council to pull themselves out of that hole. I appreciate that, but there's not even anybody willing to try, which is more of an issue, in that the negotiation skills there that's needed to put these developers in line, is sadly lacking. The planning department has been decimated. They don't even have, I believe, enough officers in their department to address the planning issues. So therefore things are just getting passed and done. There's no enforcement, there's nothing. But in terms of, Margaret, your offer to meet with us separately, we'd be very grateful for that. If it needs to be a Northern Corridor event, I'd be more than happy. If you want it to be Gartcosh and focused on that, I'd be delighted. It doesn't matter what. I'd be delighted to work with you.
Chair Carol Henderson has her hand up, and Alice Morton.
Carol?
I was actually just going to, a lot of my points, Isabel already covered. So, it does cover the whole of the Northern Corridor. I know Isabel's obviously talking about Gartcosh, but the whole of the Northern Corridor has exactly the same issues. And there's not, as she said, there's not much ground left in some areas to be able to build any of the services that actually need to go along with, the housing developments. There's not space to build a new primary school, for example, or there's not space to have a playground built. And these are obviously important factors in a village. You can't just have houses and nothing else. So there is a lot of issues. But what I had actually been going to ask you was, I know that you've got the 5,000 figure, but do you know how many you are wanting to build in the Northern Corridor of affordable housing? Do you actually have a figure for the Northern Corridor?
I can't tell you that figure just now, Carol, but we will have it in our strategic housing investment plan, which is available online, the council's website. I'll drop the link into the chat bar. That tells you what we've got currently planned. That's not to say that that won't change, because as I said, we're constantly evaluating and scoping out for sites in North Lanarkshire. So we're always reviewing that. So that's what we've got planned just now. But as I said, we're always looking for new sites and looking for areas to build. But I can drop that link into the chat bar.
Right, that would be great. Thank you.
Margaret, if I could interrupt, having studied the modified development plan, I think people will find that the houses for the Northern Corridor, there is no social housing scheduled in there. There was none documented within the modified development plan.
Alice.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like just to add a very brief statement to what has already been expressed at this meeting. North Lanarkshire Council and the Scottish Government are aware that there is serious discontent and disquiet across the Northern Corridor in terms of housing overdevelopment. They're aware of the serious negative impacts on the communities across the Northern Corridor in terms of lack of infrastructure, impact and pressures on health service deliveries, educational provision, loss of green space, loss of green belt, loss of amenities and facilities, that the community assets in our small communities are small by the very nature of our communities, and communities in the Northern Corridor are suffering. Communities in the Northern Corridor are disenchanted with what is happening. Communities in the Northern Corridors feel abandoned and deserted, and no one is listening to them. However, the Northern Corridor is dealing with this, but we have to make the meeting aware of the serious, very serious, widespread groundswell of discontent regarding housing development in various ways, whether it be social housing, houses that are accessible, the housing development, the cartels of housing developers who are operating, who are building what they want, where they want, regardless of communities. So the situation isn't good. I finish there.
Thank you, Alice. Councillor McPake.
Sorry, Chair, I couldn't get off mute there. Listened with interest, and I agree with most of what's been said. Absolutely. I mean, the community growth area in our area has been botched since day one, going back to 2006, 2007. So, I mean, I wasn't involved then, and I'm not pointing any fingers at anyone, but the council are dealing with it as best they can at this present time. But what's been missed out here, and I'm surprised Margaret's not picked this up, the council have already built a serious amount of, not a serious, they've built quite a few council houses within our communities. Mullinsburn, Gartcosh, there's been 48 council houses bought off the shelf there, and Christen as well. I'm not sure, I'm sure there's some buildings bought in Steph as well. There are plans for further houses to be bought off the shelf in Glenboig and further developments in Gartcosh. So let's not all be doom and gloom. We are fighting we're not fighting a losing battle. We're trying our very best to deliver some social housing here. I agree with a lot of what Alice is saying, totally the cartels of the housing developers. But as a council, let's not forget we're doing a very good job delivering some of the best quality local council houses, basically, to a very, very high standard. So let's not be all doom and gloom about this. We are delivering some council houses. Thank you.
Thank you. Isabel, if you put your hand up again.
Yeah, I have to disagree with Ms McPake in terms of there has been housing which has been built by developers that has been handed to housing associations where the people have had to meet a certain criteria. If you're a single person, you have to be in work, you have to be over £16,500 in terms of salary. If it's a dual couple, you have to be over £24,000, and 48 houses in terms of the length of this administration. If somebody thinks that's good, then I rest my case. The landmass is getting taken up by houses that are far too expensive for the people who live in the area. Everybody needs new housing. Nobody is complaining about building houses. People are complaining about the social cleansing of the area with high cost housing, and if they build appropriate housing, semis, built terraced housing, they would take up less landmass, they would get to the quota quicker. Whether we like it or not, North Lanarkshire Council is committed to 20-odd thousand houses through Clyde Plan, and that's our share that we're to take. My gripe is that 36% of it sits in the Northern Corridor. And because planning and other departments won't do the work, they don't do the sums, and it's heading well over that figure. It is not the figure that council think, because when we add up all the planning applications, all the development statements, when we add all that up and what's been passed and what's been built, we're sitting with a modified development plan that has said 0 has been built in Gapcosh. It says it inside the document that there is no houses from the 1,947 houses that's to be built. And when that was published, 588 houses were built with the people in the houses paying council tax. And that's the inaccurate information. And that is why the schools are in the state that it's in. Because the senior officers don't realise what is going on in other departments. And there's some Gapcosh school will get built, and see by the time it's built, there won't be enough places for the kids that are going in it. Because they don't realise what's happening round about them. So I'll close there.
Chair, Councillor Lennon and Carol Henderson are looking to come in, I think. So.
Councillor Lennon. We can't hear you, Councillor.
Perhaps he's dropped off the call, I'm not sure.
Okay, Carol.
Thanks, Chair. I would just like to say as well that I totally disagree with Councillor McPeak. You know, if the council have bought some houses, very good. You know, you've done something. However, if you want to take if you had been at our forum meeting, at the last forum meeting, you would have seen 4 residents that were there discussing the state of their council house, with trees and vegetation growing out their gutters, drains that were totally bogged up, council housing that is full of dampness. Now, that's nothing to do with developers. There's no point in you going on about buying 40 odd houses when you can't even look after the ones that you've already got. And that's not just a few years of over COVID or anything else. That is years and years and years of neglect. So until you start actually looking after your council house stock that you have and leaving people living in absolute disrespectful living accommodation, I suggest you actually start looking at your housing policy and stop criticising other people.
Okay, thank you. I think we've had a good amount of time on this particular point, and we have the offer of a meet with Margaret, which might be a better way for us to progress at this point in time. Conscious of the agenda, we have things that we need to move on to. So can I thank you for your contribution, Margaret, and the contribution from those that have actually responded to that. I think we need to move forward at this point. Can I ask for Matt Costello to talk about board development sessions, which I trust addresses some of the training needs for the board.
Thanks, Chair. Very briefly, it's going to share a Okay, thanks, Chair. Just very briefly, I wanted to give an update on where we are with the Community Board Development Programme at the moment. Just to let you know, as members of the board will be aware, following the learning training needs analysis that took place, a development phase of the board is underway. The hub that's been devised will be produced over the next few weeks in line with the training needs analysis, and ultimately we'll look to have resources available online, accessible from any device and delivered in a kind of a blended format approach. We'll ensure that anybody who's interested in participating in that process will have access to the LearnNL portal, and that will be provided in due course. Introductory sessions to the hub will be offered to help members navigate their way around the process. That slide just gives you an idea of some of the things that have been raised as part of the training needs assessment and analysis that's taken place. And these are the way, this is the way that we'll be taking that forward in terms of the issues that have been raised as part of that analysis going forward, and that will be part of the portal that will be developed. What people will do when it's accessible is they'll be able just to click on the tiles that are there, and behind that there'll be a resource available. Sorry, can everybody hear me okay?
Right, you'll come back on now, yes.
Sorry, it was wrong there. Did you hear in the previous stuff I was talking about there? Was nothing at all? Sorry, I'll very briefly go back over that. I do apologise for that. I don't know what's happened to the sound on this. Basically what we're doing is that we've now developed a board development sessions that will be taken forward as part of an online portal. These are the areas that have been identified through the training needs analysis that took place a few weeks ago. And these are a number of the issues that have came through. That's just an example of some of that. As that moves forward, we'll move into a system where there'll be tiles, as they call it, and behind those tiles will be learning resources for people to access that. And there'll be presentations, links to other websites, other facilities that are available for people who are interested in learning more about different decisions. These are just some examples as to how that will look going forward. So what happens next? There's work ongoing with our talent and organisational development team to further develop the online portal through LearnNL. Bearing in mind that information will also be available in other formats, written formats, and one-to-one interaction as well will be facilitated once we recognise and develop what information is actually required in that area. There will be testing of this going forward, and we will be inviting people from our Digital NL working group and beyond that who can participate in the testing of this system as it goes forward. So we'll be interested, if anybody's interested in being part of that, then please let us know. You don't need to let us know tonight, but you can let us know if you're interested in part of that testing. And as we build the hub up and develop it further, we're scheduled to launch that in the spring, around about April time. So hopefully that resource is something that people will be able to tap into.
Has anybody got any questions for Matt on the facility that's being developed for us to have our training sessions?
Carol and Isabel have got their hands up, Chair.
Carol.
That was from previous Chair, sorry.
All right. Isabel?
Same with me, but Mark, your presentation's very welcome, thank you.
Alice Morton's also got her.
Alice, do you have your hand up?
You're on mute, Alice.
Thank you very much for that, Matt. That's a very welcome resource. It looks very attractive. It looks as if it will draw people in to the learning experience. And congratulations on turning it around so quickly. I look forward to using it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I think you're next up again on the agenda with the local development programme.
Thanks again, Chair. Just briefly on this one in terms of the local development programme, the report highlights the progress with some of the projects in the area. Picking up a couple in terms of one in particular in Lanarkshire Drive, recently completed the consultation on that, and the vast majority of feedback on that related to very positive in terms of what's going forward there. So that now moving to going out to tender fairly soon, with a view to that tender being assessed in the new year. And then from there, depending on when contractors can get on site, we can't guarantee when that will be. There's some real challenges with contractors at the moment, a number of different issues, but we'll get them on site as soon as we can to get that developed and that project delivered. We think it's a very positive project for the area. The report also highlights the consultation methods that we undertake in relation to the local development programme, and the last appendix in there just gives you an idea of the consultation letter that we send out to local areas whenever we're doing a project in an area. We'll send that out to local residents to give them an opportunity to feedback on the project that we're planning to deliver. So that just gives you an idea of what goes out, so you can expect to see that in the areas for projects that are going to be taken forward. So the other projects that are there, there's information there about the year one priorities, but I'm happy to take any questions in relation to that, Chair.
From my perspective, you've just mentioned the year one priorities. Are any of these going to be delivered this year?
Well, the Lanarkshire Drive should be delivered. It'll certainly be contractually committed in this financial year, and also one of the entrance features that we're looking at there is there's also work ongoing on that at the moment as well. So there is a couple of projects there that are being taken forward. If there are any projects that the local community are interested in and want to put forward to us, we do have project proposal forums that we've shared with the community board, and we'll be happy to look into that if anyone's got any other projects you want us to consider.
Chair, could I ask a question?
Yes, Carol.
Just when you're saying about the entrance feature, the Mullinsburn entrance feature has been on the list for several years now, but we don't want a wall, because the walls that have been produced for likes of Mullinsburn and Muirhead, Christen, they look good from the front, but if you look at the back of them, they're just breeze block walls with rough cast kind of stuff in the back, plaster on the back, that is all falling off, and it just looks a mess. And we don't want a wall that looks like that as an entrance feature for Mullinsburn. You know, the stone doesn't even fit in with this kind of area style of it or anything else. Now, I was told that because we weren't going along with what the council had wanted to build, that our proposal of our entrance feature would be put off in time. Can I ask why that would be, rather than getting done in the format that we would want it in?
Certainly, we're happy to consider any other views of the local community in relation to that proposal. If it's not something the council wanted to deliver, Carol, it was more along the lines of that's a design that was put out for consultation. If that design's been rejected, then that won't go ahead. It's not something we're going to impose on anybody in that regard. But if you've got any other ideas or something you wanted to do, then we're happy to revisit that and see if that's something we can take forward.
But is it possible that it can still be done in year one though?
It just depends on what kind of work's required in terms of design, tendering, and anything like that.
See, likes of
it's
the
certainly something
design.
we'll be able to look at.
Likes of the design. I mean, even if it was like a dry stone wall, I mean, you don't really have a design in it as such. You're just building a straight wall.
I think again, that's maybe something in terms of have a wee chat with my maybe Roz or Colin Bruce and the team in relation to that off table, and we can try and see if we can take something forward a bit quicker.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other points?
Yeah, Alice has got her hand up.
Alice.
Thanks, Brandon. It was to pass on to Matt that the upgrading of Steps Hill Park and Alistair Drive at Mullinsburn was very well received by residents. And working with Colin Bruce, Colin asked that the Community Council post a survey on our Facebook, and apparently it reached 5,000 people. So there was a great interest in it. And the community at Mullinsburn are delighted that work has been undertaken on this. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, the next item is Gary, the Local Outcome Improvement Plan.
Thanks, Chair. An updated paper was circulated to board members, providing the latest update regarding the local outcome improvement plans. As you'll be aware, the LOIP for all community boards have now been published on the Council's website and distributed a couple of weeks ago to board members. Work is now underway to create subgroups linked to our priorities. The subgroups will be a key driver for taking forward local actions to address local needs, with a specific focus on addressing and reducing inequalities. In the paper, information is provided about the implementation and operational model that will be used going forward. It highlights the shift to action and the intention for the LOIPs to provide focus for the work of the community board, as well as partnership delivery at the local level. A key element of each LOIP is that it enables a more focused approach with one clear set of priorities for the Northern Corridor. Just to remind you, the priorities that have been agreed include health inequalities, children and young people, social integration and inclusion, community transport, Mullinsburn West as a particular area of focus, and building relationships and trust and communication. Moving forward, officers from Community Planning Partnership, along with representatives from the Community Board and other interested parties from the wider community, will come together to form subgroups to progress the identified priorities and initial actions contained within the LOIP. Every effort will be taken to connect to existing structures already in place in order to avoid duplication, and we want to involve more people from the wider community. It's anticipated that some development time will be required to get subgroups operational with the appropriate local people and partners involved. Since the LOIP will run through to 2026, there is time to develop plans for the short term, the medium term and the long term, and this has been outlined in the paper also. The paper reinforces the importance of ensuring a focus on inequalities and about the need for targeted approaches and interventions. The exact plans for each priority will be determined by the subgroups, supported by the Community Board and officers from the Community Planning Partnership. When looking at all the LOIPs from all 9 community boards and the information gathered from various engagement processes, it's become evident that there is a number of cross-cutting themes, and these will be of no surprise to you all. These include tackling poverty, digital inclusion, mental health and well-being, and young people. The paper provides initial commentary on these points. Also included in the paper is a section on measuring progress and specifically about monitoring and tracking. This includes a progress on key updates to be brought back to the board, 6 monthly tracking progress reports to the North Lanarkshire Partnership Strategic Leadership Board and the Community Empowerment Committee, an annual report produced and published in line with requirements for Community Empowerment Scotland Act 2015, and a formal review every 2 years. The template that will be used from today onwards to record and report feedback to the board and to other structures is given in Appendix 2. Appendix 3 of the update outlines the initial work to set up the subgroups and the expressions of interest received so far. The plan is for an initial meeting to take place between now and the end of the year, with a follow-up meeting in January. Following this, subgroups will create their own schedule of meetings to take things forward. Lastly, it's vital that further and wider engagement and promotional activity is undertaken to promote and raise awareness of our local outcome improvement plans. It's proposed that a short life working group will be convened to develop a communication and engagement approach. The working group will be for all areas and will consist of officers from Community Partnership Team, Voluntary Action North Lanarkshire, NHS Lanarkshire Health Improvement, plus any interested members from the community boards themselves. If you're interested in being involved, then please indicate on the chat bar or get back to me out with the meeting. I'm happy to take any comments or questions now.
Thank you, Gary. A comment from me as the chair. The published document on the NLC website has a foreword from the chair. As the chair of the board, I'm not aware of actually coming up with these words. How did that happen?
Chair, that's a fair comment, and you have already brought that to my attention, and I can advise that there was a number of people from the other community boards involved in preparing a statement for the forward. We do agree that the one for the Northern Corridor hasn't had the input required from John Wilson previously or yourself. And on that matter, we will be very happy to work closely with you to fix it as soon as possible. And there is no issue in doing that, and we can then update it online as well.
Thank you. Anybody else with any comments of having seen the document now?
Chair, Carol Henderson has her hand up.
Carol.
You're talking about the subgroups and the different area, the different subgroups in the different areas, etc., and having meetings, etc. We had actually raised before. It was actually one of our member groups, but we raised it through the forum as well about the fact that it's the same people who are on the forum that are, attending the board, etc. And then, obviously there would be, you're looking to have some extra people from outside, other members of the public, etc. And obviously there'd be council officials and things like that part of it as well. But the boards, the subgroups from it, can we not do it like Kilsyth Community Board, where different organisations or groups that are within the community take on a different action that are already in existence, rather than setting up new groups for all of this to create new meetings, etc., and use groups that are already in existence to take on the different actions.
Yes, Carol, that's what I mentioned a few minutes ago. We would be happy to consider other appropriate structures that could be used for the subgroups. In terms of the picture in Kilsyth, at this point, there's only been some early discussions. So what you're talking about there hasn't materialised yet, but it is our intention for some of the subgroups to be linked to existing community organisations and groups. I have been in contact, as you're probably aware, with Alice, and I'll be delighted to come forward to your next community forum meeting in, I think, the 9th of December. I can confirm that now, to have further discussions about how these matters could play out locally.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alice.
You're on mute, Alice.
Thanks, Chair. Simply to say to Gary, thank you. You've been very supportive, you've been very responsive, and you've been communicated well with the Northern Corridor Community Forum, and we would be pleased to welcome you to our meeting on the 9th of December. Thank you very much, Gary.
You're very welcome, Alice.
Chair, Ellie Morrison has put a message in the chat bar as well, asking a question. So I don't know if you're able to access that.
Is that the question about Mullinsburn West?
Yes.
Essentially, they were identified by their SIMD data as an area of deprivation, hence the focus was placed upon them.
And I guess from a community perspective, what I would say is that there's obviously younger people who access facilities right across the area, and a geographical defining boundary shouldn't really be the decision taken around about where things happen. The broader point was actually one about it's an offer of assistance. I'm particularly interested in the absence of what looks to be an active group. I do know that the volunteers group do some fantastic stuff locally, but I'm kind of thinking, well, how do we get volunteers to help you take this work forward if we don't have an established community group that you're reaching out through to identify that? And you know, the question back is how can I help bring that forward for you?
Well, in terms of groups, this is one of the reasons why we wanted, you may have heard at the beginning of this meeting, for a more comprehensive listing of groups in the Northern Corridor to be identified. That would be a starting point to enable better communication with all the areas. Not knowing your whereabouts or how you fit in, Elaine, what is your location?
So I'm here purely as a resident who picked this up in the Northern Corridor Facebook page as an event that was taking place. There is no formal grouping. We have tried to engage with Mullinsburn Community Development Trust to understand, and these are some other residents locally, to see how can we help to make things active, to make things more productive, to make a difference to the local area. That's not really gaining any traction at the current time. I'm participating in some other conversations locally to try to find out essentially how people can help. Brandon, so there's a void in terms of how Mullinsburn is represented within the Northern Corridor grouping, and we need to try and find a way to fill that and bring it back to the community so that the community can be part of finding a solution.
Yes, and I think you'll find that we have actually tried to establish links as well. Carol.
Chair, can I ask, Elaine, are you part of the group that involved, was his first name Dave Gardner?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So I didn't involve David Gardner. David Gardner reached out to me because I sit on community planning partnerships in different parts of Scotland. Yes.
He contacted myself as the chair of the Northern Corridor Community Forum, and you know, asked about it. It was myself that had said to him about the development trust. Yes. Unfortunately, the Development Trust don't seem to be very active at the moment. There is the Tenants and Residents Association, but it only obviously covers the Burnbury area. You know, we would love for a proper representative group from Mullinsburn to be, you know, to be established and obviously be part of the forum. I don't know, you know, if it's possible to set up a community council or something like that, or a Tenants and Residents Association that would maybe cover the full of Mullinsburn. You know, if a community council could be set up quickly, or does it have to wait for, you know, the terms to come round? Tenants and Residents Association could be set up at any point in time. But you know, that kind of thing can be dealt with. There's different, you know, even if you set up a Tenants and Residents Association in the interim, if community council couldn't be done, it would allow you to get set up and established as a group and then change, you know, to a community council when the terms came round, if that wasn't able to be done just now. But the Development Trust hasn't been operating. You know, it's not been active for quite some time.
That's really helpful, thanks, Carol.
But
and for the volunteers in the chat box as well, we'll follow up.
Yeah, it was the people from like the board, but you know, a lot of them are, pretty much everybody that's on the board is also on the forum, and it was members. And I must say, none of them obviously are from Mullinsburn, but it was members of the group that looked at the different areas and established that Mullinsburn West was an area that needed attention, and that's how it was singled out you know, on the list of subgroups to be established.
Thank you.
If you wish any more information, just contact the forum and we'll get that for you.
Thanks, Carol.
Okay.
Thanks, Brett. Oh, Chair.
Yeah, Gary Stark's looking to come back in.
Gary?
Thanks, Chair. Elaine, delighted to hear that you're interested to be involved. I'd be happy to pick up out with the meeting to provide you with some local information that we also contain as part of our community partnership team.
Thank you, Gary.
We'll move on to the budget listening events. Ros.
Roger, on mute.
Putting my presentation up there. I'm sure some people remember me from before and know that I've been around a long time and worked in the Northern Corridor as part of that. Obviously, I'm just going to provide a wee quick summary about the budget event that we had back on the 27th of October. I think one thing I want to say is that was a very good meeting. It was a very interesting meeting. There was lots of ideas and suggestions coming forward about how, you know, we could look at what we do around things. So obviously there was 4 questions set as part of that. So I'm just to say this only as a short response to what's happened, but there is a larger report which will go forward with all the other reports from the areas to inform obviously the budget outcome of the meetings. So basically, some of the things that came up with regards to what the council services people valued the most in the community were things around essential libraries, IT suite, community meeting space, education, health and social care. So apologies for that. Ensuring young people have equalities and access to more education outside school, and especially diversity and learning disabilities being recognised. There was discussion about waste management services and how that is, you know, available locally and how it currently works and how it could work in the future. And obviously, one of the things that was coming out was, you know, and I do recognise that in the Northern Corridor, you are creative and you are always open to looking at other suggestions and other ways to do things. So it was about the, you know, and asking the council to be more creative and how with their budgets and do a bit more for less. Service delivery priority number 2 was about, in terms of the day-to-day service, you know, there was difficult choices about being creative about how we use the budgets. Instead of slicing it across a number of areas, is it about looking at what's really relevant and required for that area? Question 3, the views on the types of services the council could reduce or stop providing. Certainly there was some confusion, there was some issues, not confusion, but clarity required, I think, around, well, what are the essentials, and maybe perhaps the council thinking at future budgets to make that more clear about what those options are. What are the essential services? What are the ones that are more just would like to, you know, provide rather than absolutely have to provide? Considering a change, one person mentioned considering a change to joint integration boards, and thinking the community could maybe strip out a lot of value if they were involved in delivering that. And also there was a discussion about, you know, partnership working as it comes at a cost, you know, and changing some delivery models. Examples was given about fixing roads and new innovation solutions, and to look at our service design and delivery and asking what, you know, about that, what we would look at as part of that. Question 4 was about how communities can work with public services to shape and support the delivery of services that are important to local people. And STEPS, the council feels that it's not been able to, you know, STEPS Community Council feels it's not been able to refresh the planters or the planning around the War Memorial. And they've been in touch with the council about how can we be involved in doing that. And I think that night we gave the details about Recover NL and about how we can actually, you know, I think some people maybe now have applied for that through the local community groups and organisations to see what they want to do and how they feel they can work to that. And certainly the young people on the meeting that night were also keen to get involved with the community to see how they can help deliver some of this. And so Certainly there was also issues around access to Auchinlock Community Centre, and I'm certainly happy to have further conversations with people around that if you want to do that. Young people, as I said, they've been involved in volunteering and they've been doing the Saltire Award, and they want to enhance their skills and knowledge by being part of what's going on in the community. So again, as a council, we will be involved with yourselves in looking at how we help them facilitate more youth involvement. Some other questions that were raised was about the Northern Corridor Facebook, and Alice very kindly shared about that and how important that is, and want to promote the My NC Facebook and raise the profile of that, and that's something we're certainly going to look at. Providing a list of groups, which is something that we still have to do, and ensure that, as I think is mentioned tonight, that across the departments we need to do a bit of cross-cutting searching to see if we're missing any groups that are applying for grants but maybe not attending meetings, who maybe would be interested in linking in more. So certainly need to pick up on that, and request for more help for smaller groups to access funding. Again, we recognise that's something there's a potential to do. So again, and people knowing what funds to apply for, you know, is another key thing. So the council will share, will improve to ensure that the invite to other members to become part of the other groups, to become part of the community boards. And we'll share the link to the SurveyMonkey, which I think you might have got, and hopefully some of you have responded to that SurveyMonkey from the meeting. If not, please do. And also council will share the information and training, which I understand is being delivered tonight. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions from that. There is, I say, there is the wider report that will go forward to inform the outcome from all of the budget consultations across the area. But that was just a short flavour of some of the discussions we had. So I hope you feel that's representative.
Thank you for that, Ros. I was actually present at that gathering, and I certainly felt and heard other people say that they didn't feel particularly well informed to provide an informed decision when asked how could we save £54 million. So I didn't feel the meeting actually came to any real conclusion, but hopefully there can be some follow-up engagement to allow for that. Anybody else with any comments? Was everybody actually aware of this meeting? Councillor McPake.
Here, I really need to apologise retrospectively. I was very aware of the meeting. The only thing was I get my dates mixed up. I turned up the night after the meeting, and I really apologise to Gary at the time. It was just a bad diary error on my behalf, so I apologise to the meeting as well. Thank you.
I would comment that when I was first made aware of the meeting, it was for the day after. It was only when I got the actual meeting invite that I realised it was on the Wednesday. So I would have been like you.
Oh, thanks very much.
I would have turned up on the Thursday.
I feel vindicated now. Thank you.
Councillor Lennon, are you waving at me?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. It's to ask Rosalind, how many participants did we have in that consultation process, if you could advise? You're muted, Rosalind.
Mute, Rose.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I will get that mute button right at some point, probably by the end of the meeting. Just say, yeah, there was around 15 people participated in that meeting that night. So, but that included obviously 3 members of staff.
I think that confirms my point about the the attendance. So I think we do need to do something more. Gary.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just add in some additional information? So as well as the listening events, we had the community consultation, which Ros referred to. I can confirm to you that it has just recently closed. Happy to circulate the paper copy to anyone who feels that would like to contribute. But in terms of the figures so far, we had 464 responses to the SurveyMonkey and a further 16 paper submissions as well.
Can I come in again, Chair? Would that be
Yes,
okay?
you can, Greg. Yes.
I'm sure you know where I'm going with my next question. How many of those were for the Northern Corridor?
We're still to break that down, Councillor Lennon. We only closed the survey this morning. I'll get information as soon as possible.
Wide then, I take it?
Yes.
I think well, we would hope to have some return to this matter at some point in the future, but time is pressing, and I think we should move on. Matt, Recover NL funding updates.
Thanks, Chair. Just very briefly on this, a number of community groups will be aware of the Recover NL fund that became available earlier in the year. Local groups were contacted and asked if they wanted to avail themselves of materials to allow local community cleanups, local pickup, litter pickups, etc. in the area. Some groups in the Northern Corridor did put forward for that. We did have some issues in terms of the delivery aspect of that, and we do apologise for the issues in relation to that, but that's now progressing. That said, it would hopefully be resolved. In addition to that, we've also undertaken a grants programme for local community groups to apply for funding. That's ongoing at the moment. It's closed, sorry, actually it was closed the 19th of this month, and those grants are being assessed and funding will be paid out to successful groups over the next few weeks to allow the groups to purchase materials for their own community groups to use in future months in terms of environmental improvements, etc. Final point on that is in terms of winter resilience. One of the things that our team has been involved in has been getting local groups. A few years ago, we went out to a few groups in our more rural areas to take on winter resilience packs to be based in, usually with groups who have got premises, who held those packs within their organisations and allowed local communities could access them and use them. It had like portable shovels, torches, high-vis, hand warmers, gloves, etc. that may be used locally. We're expanding that now, and to date we've had a further 18 groups across North Lanarkshire who have said they'll host these winter resilience packs within their organisations' facilities. And once we have all that carried out and that list prepared, we'll share that across the area so local communities can know where these are available. But that's something that's been done through the Recover NL Chair. So that's just to give an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions?
If I could just come in here.
Yes, Isabel.
We put a list forward to the council, and I think I actually got clarification that we were getting the products that were listed, and for some reason they've never arrived.
So say, absolutely, as we would understand, there has been some issues regarding delivery. They're seeking to resolve those at the moment, and hopefully that'll be done as soon as possible. We are aware of one or two, particularly in the Northern Corridor, where that was an issue, but
It's just Mark, we got an email from you asking if you've got any photographs, Isabel, of using the equipment, if you would be happy to send them on to us. I said I'd be delighted to send them on to you, but you need to send me the equipment first.
No, absolutely. No, so we'll take a note of that as well, and we'll chase that up tomorrow as well and find out what's happening, and I'll try and get that resolved as quickly as we can.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you. Gary, do you want to tell us about participatory budgeting?
Yes, Chair. The update is specifically in relation to the LDP project though, but if you're happy for me to proceed, I will start.
Yes, please.
So a paper has been submitted to the community board that gives information regarding participatory budgeting. And I would like to briefly draw to your attention a few of the main highlights. Following approval of the mainstream participatory budgeting proposal at the Council's committee, there is now a requirement for the community boards to consider how participatory budgeting will be best work in their local area and to establish a suitable task and reference group to take this forward. The establishment and operation of this group will be supported through the community board development sessions that Matt mentioned earlier. This will ensure all members will have the required skills and knowledge to fully participate and will go through all the information in regard to participatory budgeting itself. As you're aware, participatory budgeting is about local people having a direct say in how public money is spent, and it supports active citizenship within North Lanarkshire, helping build more active and stronger communities. Where appropriate and subject to available funds being agreed by the community boards, participatory budgeting is one mechanism that can be used to prioritise and deliver projects locally, and will be deployed when required and suitable for the local circumstances. Going forward, the community board will direct the participatory budget process in regard to LDP, and this will come from the current LDP budget. It's important to mention that this is not a separate funding source, and no additional funding is currently available for the process. However, in the future, we hope that funding from the likes of community benefits and other sources of internal and external funding could be added. I also would like to highlight that the local development programme will not be fully delivered using a PB process, and normal arrangements will remain for certain types of projects. This is to ensure that the local development programme retains the ability to proactively target issues, especially those relating to community safety. Whilst participatory budgeting can involve a public vote on projects, importantly, it also includes the ongoing engagement with the community boards on budget allocation decisions. As such, participatory budgeting may not be the most appropriate delivery mechanism on every occasion, and will instead become part of a suite of delivery options. Each community board will contribute towards the decision making on how it will operate within their area, and how this is focused to meet the local place-based and thematic priorities. Where appropriate, our community board may decide that one of our proposed subgroups can take on the delivery role, and therefore there may not be a requirement to establish a new task and reference group. We're happy to have that discussion. Decision will be made locally by each community board to best reflect their local structure and needs. Whether an existing subgroup or a new task and reference group is created, there is a requirement for a council officer to be involved. This is so that we can provide guidance and advice on the participatory budgeting processes and to ensure appropriate financial governance is in place. The community board is asked to consider this update and to approve the establishment of the appropriate participatory budgeting task and reference group or similar, along with the governance processes, with implementation supported through the Community Board Development Programme and with support from the Community Partnership Team. Happy to take any comments or questions now.
I think from what we've had already, basically we need to have that training before we can actually do any of this. So it's very dependent upon getting that training up and running fairly quickly.
That makes sense, Brandon. Thank you.
Isabel has her hand up, Chair.
Isabel?
Can I just ask a couple of general questions, Gary, and that we have no training, but, you know, would monies be directed or plans be directed, obviously, to areas where, you know, there's children involved in terms of deprivation, fuel poverty and food poverty, and kind of participatory budgets? And do we recognise, or have we done any work on the working poor, and does that feature in any of the plans? Because that is a concern in the area where people are working really hard, they're paying their bills, they don't feature in any statistics, but actually they've got a miserable existence.
Yes, Isabel, that's fair comment. It's something that we would be absolutely keen to explore. As I've mentioned, the community board can decide how the available LDP funds are directed going forward using PB approaches, whilst I would ask everyone to be mindful that we still have to deliver normal LDP activity that is a part of that as well. But if there is, for example, planned projects but a significant balance left within a given year, the decision could be taken by the community board on how best to utilise that. And that may include PB, and it may be directed to children and young people and working poor, but it still has to be in relation to LDP type projects and initiatives. In terms of the information, my understanding is that some of the officers from a team who are more involved in the processes have been involved in some research with a university from England, who are very keen to explore a lot of some of the things that you're talking about potentially. So it is a learning process, but there's lots of local experience. There's lots of intelligence from COSLA and the Scottish Government that will guide us and aid our processes being developed going forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Petitions. I'm not aware of any. I don't know if any of the council officers have received any.
No, not in this, not in this meeting, Chair.
Input from community planning partners. We've received a report from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. Any comments on that? Do we have Brian? Are you wanting to say anything?
I don't have anything prepared, Chair. I was told just to provide my report, and I wouldn't be needing to speak to it so that people could read it prior to me.
No, that is good.
To try and cut down time on the meeting. So
yes, no, thank you for your reports. Yes, that was good. A question from Councillor McPake.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Brian, just in your report, you highlight the need, as from February of next year, for smoke alarms, heat alarms in all properties. Now, I've had a few inquiries about this. What's your view on the battery operated ones? Are they as good as the hardwired ones, or do we need to go down the road of hardwire? Or what's your view on the battery operated ones?
they're both built done to the British standard, so they're both perfectly good at performing the function that they're designed for. They can be put up by just somebody that's got DIY skills, whereas if you go for the hardwired ones, you're probably looking at you have to get an electrician in, and they'll need to do raggling on roofs and stuff like that. So probably most people are tending to go for the Bluetooth battery ones. So
that's fine, Brian. Thanks very much for that. That's fine. Thank you.
No bother.
Chair, there's a number of hands up.
Isabel?
So Anne-Marie, Alice, and Gabby, and Isabel Kelly. So
I'd spotted Isabel's first, but yes.
My comment was just that we recently purchased the Bluetooth type. Find them quite good. Once you've set up the master one and you communicate with the others, they're quite easy. And I'm not exactly the greatest technical person, but they meet the requirements, and they're quite good. There's 3 or 4 in the market, but the Bluetooth ones were excellent. So any residents that have been asking if they don't want to incur the cost, as Brian had said, of an electrician or have your walls raggled and wired and whatever, the Bluetooth ones tend to fit the bill in that.
Thanks for that, Isabel. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel. Alice?
Thanks, Brandon. Brian, the Community Council way back when the link to alarms was announced by the Scottish Government had contacted the fire service to ask about a presentation to the Community Council. You maybe remember that was a good few months ago, and I noticed in your report that you had delivered some presentations. Are you still available to do this, or will I stop asking?
We've actually shared a document today that's got quite a few links to the Scottish Fire and Rescue website. Gives you contact details for company, it's Lanarkshire Care and Repair, who are kind of an accredited, that they've received funding, I think it was of £500,000 for the Scottish Government to provide the link detection as well. I think that was shared earlier on today by Gary. So, but certainly if you want somebody to attend one of your meetings. If you drop me a wee email, I can arrange for somebody to be there.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who have I missed?
I think it's me, Gabriela Mitas, Health Improvement, NHS Lanarkshire. I have received an information from Evelyn Ryan. She is our service manager, to update you because she left the meeting. I think she lost connection just a couple of minutes ago, but she asked me to share with you that the new build, the new clinic, will start in the end of January 2022. This is the update from Evelyn Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you for that. A question that was returned to Evelyn was, is this facility for the whole of the Northern Corridor, as it seems to be addressed as Christon Health Centre?
Yeah, I can't answer the question regarding the new build for the clinic, but I will pass the question to Evelyn Ryan. No problem.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody?
If you have a
Yes.
Chair, it's Carol.
Yes.
Can I ask a question following on from that? You're saying that the new build would start in the end of January 22. Does that mean that you already have a contractor set up to build?
Carol, I will pass the question to I can't really answer any questions regarding the new building. It will be Evelyn Ryan, the service manager from us, who will have that knowledge. But I will ask these questions and I will email the answers back to you to Community Forum.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Chair Andrew McPherson is looking to come in.
Andrew?
Yeah, I can maybe just answer Carol's question. Yeah, there's a report going to Policy and Strategy Committee, which I think is now publicly available. The papers are publicly available, so it's on there, and the intention is to award that contract. So commencement of build, I think it's February 22 is actually mentioned in the report. So I think it's available now online, Carol. But yeah, we do have a contract lined up.
Thank you, Andrew. Any others?
Yes, please, Chair. It's Anne-Marie. I did have my hand up when Brian was answering some questions re his report. I just wanted to say that I was delighted to see that the beehives are stated in Steps Fire Station and hoping to produce honey next year that will go towards the firefighters charity. Unfortunately, Brian, what I'm quite disappointed in is that you did bring this idea to the forum quite a few months ago and asked Cardown Community Meadow if they had willing participants that would like to be involved in that. And numerous exchanges of emails, we were led to believe that we would be involved in that. And unfortunately, that hasn't transpired, even to the point at the summer of making a request when we had some youth activities going on, that it would have been an ideal opportunity to bring the youth of our community in to see such a fabulous activity that was going on in our local community. I'm still waiting on a response from it, unfortunately. So that's really disappointing that it was an opportunity that was offered towards the community, which would have brought a bit of inclusion and working together, which would have been fantastic and nice to see. I would hope that it would be made available to the community to be involved and be able to bring the youth into the community to come and experience that and be involved. So due to those numerous exchanges of emails, you want to get what's said on the tin, and unfortunately this time it hasn't happened. And I hope that the position that you hold, you're able to do something with regards to that. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that, Anne-Marie. I'm not aware. If you see in future, if you're sending emails, if you could copy me into it, and I can then keep a wee audit trail of it and make sure that it gets actioned. I think possibly we were waiting on a safe system of work for community safety engagement because of COVID. We've obviously got restrictions in place, but I don't see why, if it's outdoors, so it shouldn't really have been a problem. But if you can even send me an email, that audit trail, I can have a wee look at it, and I'll look into the reason why you weren't invited in. We'll resolve that.
I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Brian. Are there any other planning partners with reports present?
Susan Ray's here from the Police Scotland. Brandon?
Police Scotland, are you able to give any report?
Yeah, good evening, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, thank you for my invitation to attend the meeting tonight. And just by way of introduction, I am Susan Ray. I'm the new Community Inspector for Cumbernauld Local Site and Northern Corridor. I've just taken over from Neil MacLeod, who attended previous meetings, sort of around about mid-September time. So this is just my second community board. I attended my first one last night, and I will in future get a kind of written submission into, so apologies for that. So I can kind of run through some incidents and crime reports that have been recorded in the kind of last quarter, following on from your last meeting. So for Ward 5 and 6, there's been 192 crime reports raised for the Northern Corridor area. Breaking that down into wards, for Ward 5 there's been 90 CRs. A few things just to highlight: there was none of those for serious violence. We have had several reported house break-ins and thefts of vehicles. We've seen a sort of spate of incidents very recently, which appear to be targeting predominantly the new housing estates across both ward areas. So inquiries are ongoing to identify those that are responsible for those incidents, and we do have kind of dedicated patrols, including officers out in plain clothes. And we're using analytical products to sort of target hotspot areas at hotspot times, etc. One of the tactics that is being used in that new sort of spate is the perpetrators are putting sort of fishing rods or kind of poles through letter boxes and retrieving car keys. And they're also kind of stealing the vehicles. So the advice to the group, and also to pass on to group members, would be to try and keep car keys, house keys, as far away from the door and not visible kind of through windows, etc. For that. We continue to develop and progress intelligence in relation to drug supply in the area, and this has recently led to the arrest of a 53-year-old male from the Crescent area who was involved in the manufacturing of controlled drugs, which included cannabis and magic mushrooms. On to Ward 6, so there's been a total of 102 crime reports recorded for that area. Again, no incidents of serious violence. And there has obviously been that kind of similar spate of house break-ins and thefts of vehicles, which I've discussed. And just in relation to drug recoveries for that area, there has been a number of possession recoveries and of note, a significant recovery of drugs following the execution of 2 warrants at linked addresses in the Mullinsburn area, where a 22-year-old male was found in possession of an excess of 480 grams of cannabis, and he was subsequently arrested. Just in general terms, and for awareness of the group, we are seeing several reported incidents of members of the public being defrauded following a WhatsApp scam. This is not specific to the Northern Corridor area, and we are seeing this across the division. It's basically the kind of complainant is contacted via WhatsApp by an unknown number, the person purporting to be a member of their family, and they know the family member's details. They go on to explain that they've lost their telephone, this is a new number, and could you please transfer money into a certain account. The complainant is thereafter defrauded of significant sums of money. So there is work ongoing with our dedicated fraud team to sort of try and target this. But the early indication is that the account of the recipients of this money is out with the country. But there has been safety guidance shared via social media for that. So the guidance and advice to the group would be just ensure that you know who you're communicating with. Don't transfer any money until you can confirm 100% who the recipient is, and it's a genuine kind of communication. We've also seen a rise in theft of parcels. Again, this is not targeted just purely through the Northern Corridor. We are seeing this across the full division. And it's, again, advice has been circulated in social media with regards to this. And again, to the group, it would just be a case of, if you are arranging for a kind of partial delivery, if you can try and make sure that you're in, or add alternative delivery arrangements for the courier rather than being left on the front doorstep. And we are trying to do a national piece of work with our National Safer Communities group to do some work with local courier companies to see if we can sort of put a stop to that. And just lastly from myself, because I'm conscious of time, we do have a joint initiative running with Trading Standards in the forthcoming weeks, and it's to try and safeguard vulnerable persons from being targeted by bogus callers. As I say, we're doing a bit of joint work where we plan to visit independent post offices to offer advice regarding the banking protocol. This is a protocol that's been established for a number of years, and it provides support and assistance to staff members within these premises to try and identify vulnerable victims who are maybe withdrawing large sums of cash, and it gives them the tools and the sort of experience to ask them questions to make sure that they're actually withdrawing the money for a legitimate reason. As part of that kind of campaign, we will be getting a social media release out, and also some sort of posters and no cold calling sign stickers, again just to sort of try and deter any bogus criminals in the area. And that is it for me, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for your report, and thank you for sitting through our meeting and hearing all our concerns, so you have a good feel for what's happening in our area. Has anybody got any questions for Susan? Councillor McPake. Oh, Greg, sorry.
It's the first time I two have ever been confused, Brandon. That was good going there. That was good going. It was just to welcome Susan to obviously the Northern Corridor. I'm obviously a Ward 6 councillor. I had a great relationship with you, so hopefully I'll continue that on with yourself. But my question and my point in relation to the report you've just been providing, obviously you've highlighted the inquisitive crime aspects in Ward 6. How many successful arrests have been there? And obviously what sort of proactive measures are you taking at the moment in relation to obviously make sure public reassurance is present, but also in addition to that as well to make sure that we're catching these perpetrators once these crimes have been committed?
So firstly, Councillor, thank you for your welcome, and I look forward to working with you and kind of keep the relationships going that Neil already had in place. So in relation to the inquisitive crime, in relation to the recent spate of incidents, there hasn't been any arrests as yet. We do believe that it is the same team that's working in our area. We do have dedicated patrols, and that includes dedicated uniform marked police vehicles in the area carrying out patrols during kind of back shift, late shift and kind of night shift hours. We also have a number of plainclothes officers deployed to the area, and we have been carrying out a number of vehicle stops and static roadside points. So we are actively patrolling the area. We are actively kind of utilising intelligence and analytical products to sort of try and give us lines of inquiry. We are obviously kind of relying on CCTV reviews, etc. So that's all work that's ongoing in the background, but it is a priority for us.
Thank you for that. Now, Councillor McPake.
Thank you. You obviously took age before beauty there. Anyway, can I also welcome you along, Susan? And it'd be good to work with you. It's always good to work with the police here. This is just a wee update from Trading Standards perspective in North Lanarkshire. I'm leading that for the council. And just this morning, I was at a press briefing regarding, and this is absolutely sick when you think about it, fidget toy advent calendars which are on sale, and the toys inside are coated with something very harmful to children. So we're putting out on our channels about the dangers of this. So if anybody on the line and wants to share this, get it shared as quickly as possible to make sure that if people buy these, tell them to return them to the shop they bought them from and get a refund. But please make sure children don't get these things because it could be very dangerous. So thanks, Chair, and thanks again, Susan.
Thank you, Councillor.
My Chair, Alice and Carol both have their hands up, but I'm not sure who was first. Sorry.
Alice?
Thanks, Brandon. Hello, Susan, pleased to meet you. And it's just a comment from Steps. We were disappointed at the unexpected departure of PC Simon Findlay. He hasn't been with us long. We had established good relationship with him. He had become familiar with local issues. The community were working with him. He had promised that he would hold monthly surgeries in the car park at Steps Pharmacy. He had promised that he would start to undertake some youth programmes to engage in certain parts of steps, etc. And before anything's really rolled out very much, he's now left and he's gone to Cumbernauld. So it was disappointing. He was also working at COP26. So he really hasn't been visible for a long while. And I made contact last month and found this out, and his replacement seemed to be PC Calvin Lake, and the other PC's name escapes me at the moment. But you know, this sort of, you know, short tenure of a position isn't it very helpful for communities? And I would hope that this might improve, because we're now starting at the beginning again with PC Lake and the other colleague. I have invited them along to the Community Council meeting. They can't manage the December one, but have assured me that they may be available over January, February and March. So it's just a remark that when you feel you're making progress and relationships are established, we would like to strengthen those rather than to lose them. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Alice, for your comments, and it's good to meet with you also. Yes, so PC Simon Finlay has been taken to Cumbernauld Town Centre in response to kind of increased calls there. I obviously only have kind of limited resources, so I have to utilise those officers in the areas where we're sort of seeing kind of increasing patterns of crime. Both constables who are going to remain within your area, who is Robbie Lake and John Fleming, they actually worked alongside Simon. The three of them effectively sort of covered the ward area, you know, and kind of covered each other when they were both off on annual leave, etc. So as much as the two other officers haven't maybe kind of been as involved with your group as Simon has been, they do have a knowledge of it, they do have a knowledge of the local area. And that was kind of part of the decision process when we were sort of taking Simon away, that we knew that the ward was in safe hands, because the officers already kind of cover a large part of that area. And they are very keen to be involved in community groups. So, you know, the things that Simon has promised and committed to in relation to the sort of surgeries and things, John and Robbie, sorry, I'm saying it's Calvin, but he's known as Robbie, they will take those duties on, and they will be as involved as Simon. I understand that obviously it's about kind of building new relationships, but both officers are particularly keen to kind of be out and be known in the community. They are both kind of relatively new to our team. But they are very enthusiastic, they are very keen, they're looking to kind of work with our partners in our communities to try and kind of solve local problems. So I would hope that that will be a kind of positive impact for the Steps area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Can we have Carol and then Councillor Lennon?
Hello, Susan. I'm Carol. I'm the chair of the Mullinsburn Tenants and Residents Association, and I'm also chair of the Northern Corridor Community Forum. First of all, welcome, and do look forward to working with you. The one thing, following on from Alice about the change of staff, we had a few changes of staff that covered Mullinsburn, and to be quite honest with you, I ended up giving up trying to follow who was the new community police officer a long time ago. Is it possible, the fact that obviously the forum covers the full Northern Corridor, is it possible for you to give us a list of what officers cover what areas, just so that we can publish that with our members and make sure that everybody's up to date with who the current officers are?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two officers who I mentioned there, so it's a PC Robbie Lake and PC John Fleming, they cover both Ward 5 and 6 for the Northern Corridor. I'm more than happy if you want to get in touch with me. I can, because I would be really keen actually to sort of speak with you individually, just to sort of learn a wee bit more about your groups and the things that you've got ongoing in the community. Obviously just being new to the area, so I'm more than happy to sort of put my email address into the chat bar, and if you want to kind of give me a call or contact me, it would be good to get a kind of chat off of table when there's a little bit more time, and I can obviously kind of just pass it on the contact details for the two officers, as well as we do have a sort of main inbox here for the community policing at Cumbernauld, which is monitored by the team and the sergeant here. So if either Robbie or John aren't there, someone else will pick it up and be able to kind of respond to any queries.
That would be great, thank you.
Councillor Lennon, and then hopefully we can move on.
Chair, thanks very much. It was just to come back on Councillor McPake's update there in relation to the trading standards issue. It's just to ask Michael, is that for the Northern Corridor, Michael? Is it authority-wide? Because I'd be concerned that obviously if shops are selling this in wards 5 and 6, just to make sure and get a clarification point.
Yeah, no problem, Greg. As far as I'm aware, it's North Lanarkshire-wide, it's almost Scotland-wide, but we're highlighting it because it's came to us and we're getting out there as quickly as possible with it to make sure as many people get to know about it as soon as possible to try and mitigate any harm to any child. Thanks.
On that note, is there any other business? Hopefully we have been generous with our time and allowed people to have their say, and I hope there's nothing new to add, but here's your opportunity.
Brendan, Isabel here.
Isabel, please.
Really sorry, because everybody's dying to get off, and so am I. But 2 items came to my notice today, which I've had a kind of deluge of inquiries about, and a few people irate. So if I could raise them, and I don't know an awful lot about them, so I'm hoping some officers here can enlighten me. The first thing is, if I've got the term right, it's a multi-venue manager, which is a proposal to do away with the head teachers in the Christen schools and appoint one manager over the various facilities. I wonder if anybody could enlighten me to this, because we have parents who are absolutely irate. So it's maybe a subject, but I don't know an awful lot about it. It's just because I've been asked to raise it.
Councillor Lennon has put his hand up.
Chair, I can maybe shed some light on this. So, Isabel, basically what's happened is I was fortunate enough to attend a parent council meeting on Monday. I've been contacted over the last week, particularly Friday, being a feeder area to both Christen Primary and Christen High School. And obviously, as everybody's aware at this meeting, I'm also a parent of 2 children at the primary school and the high school. So considerable concern was raised that a joint executive headship was going to be proposed for both campuses. To add to that, what we also had is the departure of the current sitting head teacher, and an email came out on the Friday. And at that point, that was when local parents found out that there was actually a pilot taking place. So there was meant to be a consultation process in this and various other things too. What my colleagues in the chamber quickly referred to as it was a budget decision back in 2020, which is correct, it was a budget decision, but it was vastly different from what was presented to us. So there was a fundamental change in circumstance, which obviously I tried to highlight at yesterday's education committee, but unfortunately was voted down by the convener and voted down by my Labour and Conservative colleagues. And I'm sure Michael will come in after me here. But the point being at that is again, we try to get it as a discussion. We try to have it as a debate to highlight the issues that have been raised over the past week. Legitimate concern, by the way, may I just add, because the point being is, as a parent at that school, I've got the same concerns as the majority of parents. Parents have obviously witnessed a pandemic take place. They've witnessed all these different other things where children's attainment and education has been slightly affected considerably. And again, what these parents are trying to highlight here is that they feel, in the testaments that I received, is the Northern Corridor has been utilised as a guinea pig or a test bed again. And this is one of the areas that have been sort of proposed for this. Now, if I got the opportunity to speak yesterday, I would have highlighted that obviously we've dissolved in 3 schools this proposal, a shared headship or an executive headship or a multi-complex manager or leader or whatever it's called these days. But basically, again, it's already taken place and no enough evidence has been presented about the sustainability of it. Now, to make everybody aware at the Northern Corridor meeting tonight, it's a £438,000 saving, I'm sure it is, for the council. That was what was presented in this. But the greater impact of this, to be perfectly frank, as it stands right now, it's more concerning the fact that we didn't even get the opportunity to kind of bring that towards committee, to have that discussion, to say, by the way, this is obviously a crisis point situation, and we need that as an agenda item right now to have that discussion. But as I say, unfortunately, the position as it was outvoted and no suspension of standing orders was allowed. But to let everybody know, if anybody's got any interest in it, the video is available on my Facebook page. You can see exactly what my elected members voted at that meeting. And again, I'm sure it will make for an interesting viewing. Hope that answers, Isabel.
Greg, can I ask if this is what I mean about, you know, previous items not being covered? We asked for the framework for consultation.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If there's if there should have been a consultation, or if there has been a consultation, when did that take place? Are we to know about the consultation? Because what parents are saying is they've not been consulted on this. Now, I've not got kids at school now, so I'm not up in, you know, what's happened or what hasn't happened or what meetings. So has there been a consultation, and should have there been a consultation? Because again, you know, if you are councillors and you are representing us, this is where we stand. We feel council officers, senior council officers and council officers are making decisions and our elected representatives aren't. And that's the crux of the matter here. You know, so should there be a consultation in this process? And did it take place?
Do you want me to come back to that, Isabel?
Yes, okay.
Chair, I'm aware that it could be a discussion between me and Isabel, but I'm happy to let others in and then come back to the
Peg wants to put in a word.
Sorry, we want me to come in there?
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, Alice.
I would like to know if an equalities impact assessment was carried out prior to that decision being made, and were protected groups consulted. So I have serious concerns about this. So I would ask either Councillor Lennon or Councillor McPeak to advise the meeting if an equalities impact assessment was carried out prior to that decision, and the consultation methods that were implemented in that. Thank you.
Councillor McPeak.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm sorry this is descending into a political to and fro here, and it doesn't need to. It's absolutely shocking what Greg's trying to do here. Now, the decision was a budgetary decision.
Chair,
wait a minute. Listen, I've got to listen, Chair. Can you please tell
Gentlemen, please.
Just now.
It's not a personal attack.
Excuse me, gentlemen, both of you. I was the person that asked the question.
Yes, I know you were, Isabel. If you let me come on to it.
I have no political ambitions.
I didn't see you did have. Isabel, if you let me speak. The decision was a budgetary decision to cut something like in this one decision, £400,000. Now, it's a pilot project. I don't know if we need an impact assessment on it, on a pilot, to see how it's going to work. If it goes further than that, I would definitely think you would. But the decision was made. And by the way, I'm sure, I can't tell you, I was trying to get onto the council's website there. I'm sure this was a proposal within the SNP budget last year as well. So it's okay to grandstand, you know, at committee meetings and on community forums, but you've got to get your facts right. I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
But who made this decision without consulting with the communities? How dare you put in a pilot and you do not consult communities? You have no right. That is what the issue is. The council is doing what it likes when it wants.
No, Isabel, if you calm down a wee bit and if you listen and go and look at the process, the council isn't doing what it likes. It's doing what it's instructed to do by the decisions making at budget meetings for a start off, and then committee meetings. Now, we don't win every decision in committee. As Councillor Lane will tell you, just ask them about the glyphosate. and the disaster that caused, we don't win every decision. But we've got to go by, the council officers are guided by what council does. Thank you.
Isabel, you had another point to make?
That is just a non-answer, a non-answer.
Isabel, you had another point.
Obviously, to deal with individuals. The second issue is, there was a finance meeting today regarding the acquisition of land in Gartcosh.
Excuse me.
And
I've got to interrupt here, Chair.
It's in the minutes. It's in the agenda. Under section 50. Under section 50. Would you please let me finish?
Somebody for the council, please, man, this discussion can't go on. It's a very sensitive issue.
It is not a sensitive issue.
The finance committee
they excluded the public.
Can someone mute Councillor McPeak, please, and let Isabel have her... Thank you.
The public from the meeting discussing land for a school in Gartcosh. The result is confidential cover, and that is the excuse for everything they do. The whole community knows this land belongs to Balfour Beatty. The whole community knows that Balfour Beatty has put a planning application in to up the value of the land to be able to sell the land. The whole community knows that. The council know that. Right. And yet again, from 2006, every issue concerning Gartcosh goes under confidentiality and is not discussed with the community. Now, this purchase of land is also being part of the community hub. Now, we put forward our survey on a community hub and the elements that we required of a community hub. There has been no consultation that says the amount of land to build the school will be able to facilitate all the infrastructure and all the amenities that our community needs. And the council is going forward and negotiating with these companies to buy land, and we have no knowledge that we will be able to get the facilities that we need, because we will get what is left over once they have built a school.
Yeah,
Isabel, can I move us on then? Councillor Lennon quickly, and then Brian Kane.
Chair, I would reiterate Michael's comments there. It's a sensitive subject matter. I think the Finance Committee takes place tomorrow, and obviously, as Isabel's highlighted, it's a full agenda, so I'm sure that those members in attendance will have the opportunity to have proper discussion, but it is an exclusion of press and public at that point, so I would be asking any members to be very careful, and obviously the information is being dissected here this evening. To come back to Councillor McPeak's point, Chair, and so that we do not lose the thrust of what's being discussed in relation to the shared headship taking place at Christon High and Christon Primary. I'm a wee bit upset at Councillor McPeak and disappointed at the fact that they think I'd try and politicise this matter, because Michael's known me for a considerable time, and I certainly have never ever attacked Michael personally.
Gentlemen, if you take your conversation offline, that might be helpful.
I need to make the point here that the question was asked in relation to consultation, and I never appointed this question. I'm happy to answer it because I'm involved in it. Now, the point being here is again, it's not politicised. The reality is we're going to have a shared headship. With a lack of consultation, a SWOT analysis demonstrated that there was absolutely no positives to this. And again, the consultation process has been sort of admittedly been, what would you say, to a certain degree non-existent. So the reality here is this isn't a politicised subject. If Councillor McPeak wants to talk about politics, he can speak right now about how he and others voted it down yesterday for a suspension of standing orders. But
I don't think we've got time now to be discussing how people voted. That's not the purpose of this particular meeting.
No, but I'm sure Councillor McPeak can answer to the parents in the next couple of weeks when they ask the question.
I'm sure. Is Brian Kane, you had something to say? We maybe have lost him now. At this point, I would suggest that we close the meeting. We've had a very full meeting. Everybody has had an opportunity to have their say. We have a next meeting suggested. The date is the 22nd of February 2022. I would also ask if people have some thoughts, since these meetings are of this full nature, is it a case we maybe need to consider having more frequent meetings, or do we actually consider how we make the agenda more manageable? But my point is that we've now had our say. Can we use this as a way to move forwards and have positive outcomes for the meetings from the future? So can I thank you all for your perseverance and for your attendance, and may I wish you all a very good festive season, because that is approaching, and I will look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and
Chair.
good night.
Thanks,
Well done,
Brendan.
Brandon. Thank you. Good night,